Hi everyone, my name is Adese Okoje. I am the founder and CEO of Black Women in HR, and welcome to another episode of the Black Women in HR series podcast. And today I have somebody else from America, and I'm super excited because he is a Black man in HR. There are not so many Black men in HR. So whenever I have the opportunity to meet one Black man in HR, I jump on it to listen to them because they have a different perspective because the world of HR is female dominated and male dominated, but the white men, but the Black men are the minority. So I'm happy to bring Branden Nelson to you today, all the way from America. He's going to mention the state. I forgot to ask that before when we were having the conversation. So I'm going to just introduce him by reading his bio. Then I'll let you meet him in person, let him tell you so much about himself. So Branden Nelson, MBA, is a global HR executive with more than 19 years of age. They say when you put years of experience, you can really tell the age of the person. 19 years of human resources experience for startups, mid-sized companies, and large publicly traded companies. Branden's areas of expertise lies in global and domestic employment law, compliance, employee culture development, and business infrastructure building. They say Branden is passionate about helping business leaders drastically move the needle by creating strong infrastructure that will allow them to cover risk and build legacies with no boundaries. Branden here today. In addition to what he does, he has his own consultancy, which is called the BNHR Guy LLC, a world-class consulting firm that provides HR and business support services to organizations of all sizes, industries, and business sectors. Branden, I do like your name. See, I'm pronouncing it all the British in me. Branden believes that as the HR guy, I wonder how you came up with the HR guy. As the HR guy, his efforts allow him to harmoniously connect the heart of the business to the pulse of the human capital to achieve immeasurable success. So that's what I have in terms of what you can Google about Branden on the internet. But I want to start with Branden, just telling us a little bit more about himself. So over to you, Branden.
Well, thank you first and foremost for having me. I am from California, so that's the state that I reside in the US. I'm originally from Northern California, but I've lived in Southern California since I was 18. I went to San Diego State, got a dose of Southern California, and it's been home ever since. In addition to me working in HR for 19 years, I like to say that I didn't choose HR. HR actually chose me. As an undergrad, I actually studied marketing. So I'm a creative. I thought I was going to be directing commercials and having fashion ad campaigns and all of those things. But when I went into the workforce, those opportunities weren't plentiful. But everything that was being open to me was HR related. And even going back to my undergrad working days, it was all HR related. So I decided to pursue that career. And once I just allowed faith to take its course, it was a no-brainer after that. And I've been working in HR ever since.
And in your HR role, I know you said 19 years, that's a lot. That's almost I do also have 19 years of experience. So probably of similar age, but we're not going to tell, not on this podcast. The lady never tells
look, we look good. That's all that
matters. Yes. If you say it, I'll say we look good. So, so in your 19 years, have you had a variety of generalist experience? Were you a specialist? I know you said HR chose you. But funny enough, when it comes to me, I literally haven't done anything else other than HR. I studied human resources. So sometimes I hate to think I'm a one-trick pony, but by creating a Black woman in HR, I think it's worked out for me. So what has been your experience like in just like a touch point of your 19 years?
So I started in recruitment, but I have been able, and I've been fortunate enough to touch all aspects of HR. So I started in recruitment, and I knew at the onset that that wasn't going to be enough for me. So I then pursued just a background and a really heavy foundation in employment law compliance, where I was able to work alongside an employment law attorney who was multi-state. So I was able to learn the laws of various states. And then from there, I then went on to become an HR generalist. And my company at that time was going through massive expansion. So I was given an opportunity to do a lot of infrastructure building. I then got into learning and development by developing professional development curriculum for the management staff. I then got into management myself and was then overseeing all of the HR business partners throughout the company from a domestic and global perspective. So I then got to really understand not only HR, but I would say just over business infrastructure and just overview from a global perspective. And then I went into various industries. So I've worked in the cannabis industry, which was very new in the state of California. And so it did not have any infrastructure whatsoever. HR was non-existent. So I was able to come in and take all of my previous, at that point, it was about 15 years of experience, and really be able to deliver and dedicate that to that industry. And I've also worked with labor unions. I've been able to write collective bargaining agreements from scratch and actually be able to go through the collective bargaining process and really develop that infrastructure for a company that was non-union before. So I have a really, I would say, diverse understanding of that. But throughout my career, I've never really been just in HR. I've always been involved in conversations and different initiatives that involve the business as a whole. So I've always taken that macro perspective, if you will, for just being a overall business partner.
Fantastic. That sounds to me like a wealth of HR and business experience. So we're going to move on to BN, the HR guy. What inspired you to begin that journey?
So the name is funny. I was
Yes, I need
coming
to,
up.
yeah, the name.
So the name, I was talking with my wife, and I always knew that I wanted to start my own consulting firm. That was always my end goal, but I never knew when I was going to do it. And so I had gone to a conference, and it was just really inspirational when it came to entrepreneurial endeavors. And so I came back, I was on fire. I said, hey, I'm going to start my LLC. And I am really proud of my name. I love my name, the initials of it, and I use BN for everything. I monogram everything. So that was what I started with. And when I started to think of just what I do on a daily basis, I'm that HR guy, but I'm not your typical HR guy. And so I wanted to have a name that encompassed everything that I am, but didn't put me in a box, but gave me a platform to really be able to introduce people to the way that I do HR, which is very non-traditional, but it's still impactful and life-changing as well.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. So, when we approached you, because of your experience, your wealth of experience, we wanted to dive into more strategies and business. So, and one of the key topics today is HR strategies. And and we would like to know what strategies HR personnels or HR professionals could take to make their business or companies, organizations a more conducive or productive environment. And I would also like to have include the word inclusive as well.
Mm-hmm. So I think when it comes to that, one thing that HR professionals really can do in that regard is to have a full comprehensive understanding of the business. And I say that because with HR, a lot of companies will try to keep us siloed or marginalized, where they only want us to have access to one specific thing. But I think as an HR professional, you really have to understand that your impact lies from, again, a macro perspective. You actually touch every element of the business. So understanding the company from what I call the acronym MVVP, which is the mission, the vision, the values, and then ultimately the people, which altogether is what impacts the culture. So once you not only have an understanding of what that is, if it's not very clear as an HR change agent, you can actually come in and help those things to be clearly defined. So not only that they're aligned with what the business is aspiring to do, but it's something that's going to be attractive to people. Because in order to even promote inclusion, you have to have something that's attractive that people actually want to be attached to. So I think something that a lot of HR professionals are disserviced or not given the opportunity to do is really see the business from a full macro perspective. As a, if they're just in one small portion of it, it doesn't give them the opportunity to really impact the workforce the way that they could.
Fantastic. And before we started recording, we talked about how Black men are minority, and even just men are minority in the world of HR. So what would you say, or what key advice would you give any business or any individual trying to, as part of their DEI strategy, to amplify the voices? I want to use Black men. I know men, but Black men. How can we amplify the voices of Black men? And how can we increase the visibility for the Black men in human resources and the men in human resources?
So I think I'm starting that now. The first part of it is being able to visualize it and actually be able to see what HR can look like. Because unfortunately, if you put HR in a descriptive sentence, it's normally going to be a middle-aged white woman that has traditionally been in an HR role. And so when you start to either make it gender specific, or if you stereotype it so much, it's so hard for anyone, but specifically Black men, to even want to aspire to go into that profession. What I love about HR is that it is so multifaceted and there's so many different lanes that you can actually go into with HR. So I feel like the first thing we have to do is there needs to be the promotion of it. There needs to be like examples of what HR can look like. And then under that HR umbrella, demonstrating what type of role that you can play within a company. Because if you think of HR as it being a very feminine oriented type of discipline, you're not going to want to do it. But if you say that, hey, HR actually encompasses a lot of sales, you have to be able to entice people to be able to sell something. You might want to go into talent acquisition. Or if you know your numbers and you're very analytical, you might want to do compensation and analysts. So there's different things that you can do. But I think the first part of it is that we have to be able to have exemplification of what HR can look like. And so that's why I've taken it upon myself to, again, not be that cookie cutter in the box HR person. But I've always been countercultural, not for the sake of being difficult, but for the sake of representation.
Fantastic. That's good advice. I'm just going to go a little bit further into the well-being and the mental well-being for Black men and just men in general, because there's this saying about the strong Black woman, men don't cry, men don't have feelings. Oh, be a man about it. So what advice would you give to any man or a Black man who may be potentially going through microaggression at work, or struggling at work, or struggling to be performance managed at work, and they feel like they're being penalized for not doing anything and they can't speak up? What advice would you give a man or a Black man in the workplace, in a business, at any level, and they're struggling and it's impacting their well-being?
Got it. So I think that's so twofold. The first part is, I think men, the whole phrase of men don't cry and we don't show our emotions, and all of those different phrases all came from a time where that's how we were postured to be. If you think of that specific time frame where that's how men had to operate, there wasn't really a space for men to be vulnerable or to be able to express their emotions. Whereas if we fast forward to today, where it's 2024, there are so many different resources that you can have available to you. I would say first, before you even look for that in the workplace, to try to make sure that you have that within your immediate circle. So for example, for me, I have a village of my guys. We rock together, we pray together 3 times a week, but we have that sense of vulnerability with one another where we're able to talk and do life together. that's encompassing of professional and personal. And so when you have that level of stability or that foundation, it then allows you to be more vulnerable in other contexts. So then if we take it into the professional world, I think that when it comes to human resources, this is something we easily can endorse by pushing forward the human element of human resources. If you're going to have people come to work and be mentally stable and feel that they're at peace from a holistic approach, there has to be outlets for those people to be human, and they can't be penalized for being human at work. But that has to be something that human resources advocates and allows to happen within the workplace. It's something that we can educate management and executive management on, and then have various resources. There's so many different things that we can do where we can have different core groups where people can come in and have conversations. In my career, I've always had a couch. So, they consider me to be that safe space where they come in and they're talking about their problems. And sometimes they're talking about their feelings and I help them process through it. Not that I'm certified to be able to do such, but I'm a human being and I can listen to another human being and offer them some sound advice that's going to help them to be able to move forward in life. So I feel like if we offer that space and we start to build that type of infrastructure, both in our personal and professional lives, then it'll be a safe space for men to feel the freedom to be able to articulate what it is that they're going through. And then, of course, be able to get to that place of wholeness from a mental perspective.
Thank you. That's really good advice in terms of what organizations, businesses, and HR can do. So I'm going to take this personal to you. As even I'm just going to think about myself. I have similar experience to you, 19 years. And if I look back on my journey, I've experienced some barriers I've had to overcome. I've experienced some challenges I've had to overcome. So I'm going to go to you if you can tell us, how did you break the bias of being a Black and achieving man? Have you achieved your milestone? You talked about being the first to touch the cannabis industry. How did you make yourself known and respected and taken seriously as a leader in your field as a Black man? So what strategies have you implemented or what behaviors have you used to excel in your career?
I would say first and foremost, it had to do with my mindset. I've always adopted a value-driven mindset. And with that comes from really being able to have that self-proclamation. If I don't believe that I'm valuable and that I'm capable of doing certain things, no one else is going to believe it. So I've always operated with a certain level of confidence, not cocky, but confidence of what I'm able to do. I've always equipped myself with knowledge and experience and exposure. And I have never been afraid to ask to be a part of something. And I think that was one of the reasons why I've always been given a seat at the table, because I don't fret back from wanting to go after what I wanted. My first conversation with my first boss was, I want to sit as the VP of HR one day. So what would that look like? And how can I glean from you? And what exposure can you give me that will help me to get there? Now, of course, there are some people that aren't going to be as forthcoming and as free giving as my mentor was. But if you do experience individuals that gatekeep, then you go to the next person, because the more people you ask, then the more opportunities you get for exposure. But for me, I would say that my barrier breaking, if we want to call it that, has really come from me adopting a level of tenacity that I knew I wasn't going to stop, because I'm going to a specific place. I understand that because I am a Black man, there are certain stereotypes that are put upon me, but all I believed is that they just have to experience me. Because in HR, that's one thing that people are going to realize, is that I may not like it or I may have predispositions about it, but the moment that I experience it is when I become a believer. And I feel like for me, that's been the milestones, or those been the stepping stones that I've taken, is that each element of my profession that I've been able to experience has really been because people have been able to experience me, and I've been able to show them that, look, I am capable and I can do A, B, and C. And so then that just gave me leverage to continue to elevate myself. So for anyone else that's coming in the gate, you may deal with some no's, you may deal with some doors closing, but I'm just a firm believer that there's another route that you can absolutely take to get to your final destination.
Absolutely. I believe in tenacity and being resilient in everything at work. And yeah, that was
Yeah,
really, really good. I couldn't agree more to everything you said in terms of knowing your value and being authentic and staying true to yourself against
yeah.
all barriers and challenges. So you'll be pleased to know I'm just about to ask you the final question, which is going to go to what key advice would you give to anyone? Because you did say HR found, human resources found you. For
Yeah.
someone who is trying to find HR or who is just secure their first, let's talk about maybe their first role, their first leadership role, or maybe
Mhm.
let's move to consultancy. Someone who have finally decided to take on that brave step and
Mhm.
create their own consultancy. HR consultancy, what key advice would you give that person?
Define it and make it your own. HR, again, is such a vast and broad discipline. There are so many different lanes that you can take to provide support and value to a client. And the first thing you'll want to do when you are starting your own business is really identifying what is going to be the value added services you're going to provide, and go with the things that you're closely aligned with and things that you're passionate about, which is why in my business, I don't offer recruitment services. That's where I started, but recruitment is not my sweet spot. I'm passionate about infrastructure building and development and executive coaching, et cetera. So those are the things that I offer, and I can go into oblivion with just those specific things because that's what's near and dear to my heart. So I would say for anyone that is aspiring to go after and do it your own way, do just that. Do it your way. It doesn't have to conform to what you've seen in other companies. That can be just the thing of distinction that sets you apart, that will get you the clientele. I love the fact that I can go into a meeting with a client dressed like this, or I can wear a three-piece suit and I'm still received the same way because the value is going to be the exact same. That potency is not going to change regardless of what the packaging is. So I feel if you design your company to fit your mold so that it's aligned with what your ultimate purpose and your passions are, you can't go wrong and you'll be able to do it forever and you won't want to quit.
Fantastic advice. I might just revert back to this video one day when I do choose even though Black Women HR, create my own consultancy. So thank you so much. But before we go, can you tell our viewers how they can connect with you, your social media handles, what services you offer, and is it remotely? Do you offer services to people that are based in the UK? Because we do have a strong following in the USA, and Black Women in HR hopefully should be coming
Mhm.
to New York at some point this year for like an intimate gathering, and I would extend an invite to you. But
I
how
would
can
love to
our
be there.
viewers connect with you? Please tell us your handles, emails, anything that you're happy to share.
Absolutely. So you can reach me on Instagram at BN underscore the HR guy, or at my website, www.beingthehrguy.com. I provide HR and business support services for entrepreneurs, small and large businesses. And my ultimate goal is really to meet clients where they are and to make sure that you walk away with exactly what you need. But I'm an active listener, so sometimes I'm able to fill in the gaps of what is also unspoken, which I think is one of my superpowers. But I love to give back to what's been so richly given to me. So I offer HR mentorship for aspiring HR leaders that are looking to either begin their careers or move the needle in their careers to get to a new level. And I'm excited to be offering a new mentorship coming soon. Because of my international experience, I've worked with people in the UK. I've worked with people in other countries, domestic and international. HR is the same at the heart of it. It's just going to be different laws that you're governed by. But when it comes from a strategy perspective, I'd love to connect and partner with anyone that needs it.
Fantastic. I also have to mention we do also have our own mentorship scheme that I run every twice a year. So I have one cohort currently going, and we do accept mentors in America.
Ah,
So I'll be happy for you to come on board as a mentor for the next cohort. I will probably start at the end of the year.
let's
So yes,
go.
and we're going to have a conference in September. As a thank you, you'll be given a free pass, a virtual pass to the 2-day conference. You can support us virtually. So get to hear
Thank
about all
you.
things Black HR, inclusive from the UK and global. And I am hoping that I would have an intimate session in just waiting for that to really work out. So I am going to say thank you to Branden Nelson, the BN guy. It's been a pleasure to meet you, to speak to you, to hear a lot about your knowledge, experience, everything you do. You seem such a happy
Thank you.
person. I think any of your clients or all of your clients, any client would be really happy to have you support them from moving them from point A to point Z. Because I know as an HR partner, when you partner with a business, especially with a consultancy, you need to be more aligned. And I can imagine you have a good retainer because you're such a wonderful person and you've been wonderful to
Thank
me
you.
as well. I wouldn't tell them on this podcast why I think so. So thank you so much, Branden. So for anyone watching
My
this series,
pleasure.
please, you have Brendan's social media handles. He does support UK businesses as well. Reach out to him, support him if you need to, if you're a Black man, because I emphasize a lot about Black men because we're not too many, and you want a
Yeah,
career in HR, please reach out to Brendan for some advice, mentorship, but he will just give you some key tips on how to navigate your career. And
absolutely.
remember to subscribe and a button to the Black Woman in HR YouTube channel. And thank you so much for staying involved. And I hope you get as much value as I have in this short session with the BN, the HR guy.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.